Welcome to Not Just Ads, the show where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the creator economy for B2B. Hello and welcome today to Not Just Ads, the creator economy for B2B. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by someone I know quite well and who has a seasoned career in the B2B space, Luis Casado. Luis leads B2B globally at HP. He's been there for more than 25 years and he's had a front row seat in how the company has expanded and grown over the last number of years. So I'm delighted to speak with him today. Luis, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, of course.
Great. Well, maybe you could walk us back to when you began in HP back 25 years ago, and when you look at the business when you joined 25 years ago versus to where it is today, things that kind of come to mind.
It was a very different business. So I'll talk about business 1 second and marketing another one. On the business side, it was a very large company. I think we needed more people at the time for everything. I remember marketing departments called the marketing communications, Marcom, that they were just creating brochures, but now they are being done by AI. So the change on how the company and the marketing departments evolve is huge. But just to let you know, at the time, HP had a medical division, a test and measuring divisions for engineers. It had as well servers, storage, services. So it was a very large company. And now if you look at what the company is today, the one I am is called HP. There is also a Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, which was part of that company. There is also another one called Agilent, which was part of that company. There is Philips Medical, that was also part of that company. And there was also DXC, which was the consulting and services arm of that company. So as you can see, the company grew so big that they started to become smaller, still very large Fortune 500 companies. So at the time, it felt like a monster with a lot of divisions that they had nothing to do with each other. Now it feels like something more concentrated on what people are doing and using in a daily basis.
Yeah, because from what I remember, it would have been, was it about maybe 12 years ago that the company split between HP?
10 years ago, with
10
memory.
years ago, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, HP Enterprise and then HP Inc. So the enterprise looks after services and so on, and then you're more on the hardware side and printers as well.
That's right.
Yeah. How do you think then? So like you look after B2B, which is probably about in the division, I think it represents about 30% of the business overall. So it's probably more than 20 billion now. When you look at B2B marketing and you've been in this space for quite a while, what do you think has changed over the last number of years in B2B?
Allow me to correct you. The reason why I'm in B2B is because the revenue of the company is now 70%
Oh, wow.
B2B.
Okay. Wow.
So
right.
You're right
Yeah.
about something. We split the company thinking that this will be the consumer side of the house. And,
Yeah.
year after year, they started to become more and more commercial
Yeah.
to the point that B2B becomes fundamental. And things like we thought like ABM, that they will go to the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, now they are
Yeah.
very important into this side of the house. That's why, B2B matters a lot to HP as well as it did in the past to the big Hewlett-Packard company. And I think B2B changed a lot, not on the fundamentals, interestingly, but a lot on the tactics and a lot on the technology. The fact that now we are able to track, people with IDs and do specific targeting and build content that is generated by AI and custom all the way through, and that there are agents that they can work on the process of nurturing, taking a lot of wasted time for both the customer and the company that is targeting the customer. I think these are major changes, but the fundamentals remain the same. You take large companies, you try to identify who is the buyers, you try to influence the buyer with content through the journey. The journey changed, but not that much. And at the end, you try to work together with sales. So you get successful trying to bring the customer because you have a better value proposition on your side. That didn't change at all. The question is the what and the how changed a lot as well due to technology. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see then? You mentioned, you touched on it there about AI agents and nurturing and so on. From an operational base, how are you looking at that at HP over the last, say, 12 to 24 months? Are you seeing like uplifts of efficiencies or even of, I don't know, win rates or any KPIs that you're seeing with the implementation of AI and workflows that's giving you gains?
There is you mentioned the word KPI, and
Yeah.
I was in a meeting in San Francisco with actually an event with many CMOs of large companies, and nobody agrees with is the right KPI for B2B, which is funny. Some
Yeah.
people use the MQL, some people use the MGO, some people use the econometric models. So there is no real clarity. But what I do see is when you put an effort on measuring, when you try to follow together with sales, the journey, the outcome is that you gain two things. You increase the win rate. I'm not going to talk about velocity. A lot of people claim we increase velocity. The reality I see is that the customers have their own timing for the RFP. So no matter how much you want to push, that's the due date. If anything is going to be pushed away rather than anything else. And we also see share of those accounts. The outcomes primarily are better win rates when you are nurturing the account together with sales. We are also getting incremental share of wallets over time. So in large accounts where we are competing against others, when you work together with sales on activities like ABM, we see those increases of share of wallet. And even more important, when we go into hunting, marketing provides intel in early stages into accounts where sales doesn't have the bandwidth to go deeper. So by
Yeah.
going deeper with marketing, we help a lot as well on the hunting side. So I see a lot of benefits on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to just change track slightly because one of the things I think is really interesting, and we touched on a moment ago, of HP, and it's constantly evolving with what you do. And when we worked together in my time at LinkedIn, you were with, I remember you mentioning it to me. It was under NDA and you couldn't say, but you were like, you can probably guess what it is. And then it was announced a couple of days later around the partnership with Real Madrid and now with Ferrari as well. From your perspective, like maybe you could tell us a little bit about how the deal came about, but also how you see that impacting the business overall, these partnerships. If I know when you're looking at like, it's like, okay, how do you reach your customers and how do you create that influence and preference and so on, and that and gains more market share. But from partnerships like that, like iconic brands, you're an iconic brand. Do you see how you measure that? Is it a similar way that you look at as you would in B2B, or is it slightly different when it's more of a commercial play, or I mean a B2C play?
That's a very good question. No, we take a very strong B2B approach. Let me tell you what I mean with that. So first of all, we wanted to see our logo out there more. And that's the reason why we went with Real Madrid and Ferrari. So the first metric we took is a very consumer-driven metric, which is media equivalence. We measure the amount of times our logo is being seen in different media formats, and we compare this with the equivalent investment on media and see which one, we give a dollar figure and we figure out whether the investment makes sense or not. But that's very B2C metric. And I think it's a metric which is also very relevant for companies that they don't get into the short list when there is an RFP,
Yeah,
right? So if you never, long story short, nobody knows about you, you want to be seen, so people have you in mind when there is the next RFP. Now, lucky us, we are always on the RFP, right? So we are taking a different approach on sponsorships, on partnerships, which is number one, we use the hospitality part of it to bring customers at different stages of the sales process. I'm not saying in the last stages of the sales process because that's not okay, but I'm talking in different stages in terms of we bring them using Real Madrid or Ferrari as a bonus. But what we really want to do is to bring them to our site and discuss what are our latest, products and services that we launch or software. And then it's like, fine, now that since you are here, you can go to the race versus the opposite. It's
yeah,
not a free, let's have fun activity. It is a business activity where we try to have a conversation about parts of the portfolio that they may not know from us, which happens very often, right? So we measure that and we do it in a very strict way. So I'll give you an example. If a customer comes with an order in the system, which is only PCs, what we try to see is whether that order will change in its composition within the next 90 days. So if the customer comes with PCs and then suddenly decides that he wants to buy more PCs, we don't count this as an incremental.
What you would do is an RFP comes through, and let's say it's for laptops, and you can see that this is like a potential large client. You would say then, okay, what's the potential for expansion here? And
Correct.
rather than having an analyst do that expansion, the partnership fuels as a way of even nurturing that, of like actually understanding the broader context of their business. And they obviously have the experience and so on, but you get a much better understanding of what the broader context of the business is and the potential for that expansion in a face-to-face way, rather than before it's kind of I don't know, it's like somebody following up by the phone, or somebody following up in a manner where you may not have as much opportunity to cover what the potential is.
That is correct. So the partnership is being used from a hospitality perspective as the place where we can have a conversation about parts of the portfolio that are not part of the current RFP. And we only take credit for those changes. So if somebody will only be willing to buy PCs, we will only count the incremental if there is a shift on the order, meaning printers,
Right.
and only within 90 days, because we know there are going to be many other touches to the account later. So we only take credit for what is different and within a small period of time, right? Within the life cycle of an order that could take, 3 years or 4 years at times. The other one that we try to do is we have very, very important personalities in those, like Mbappé or Hamilton, but this is not the main interest we have. The main interest we have is on the CIOs of those companies. So to us, having content, we build content with those CIOs on how they use HP. And that's the true value of those partnerships to us. So if you think about this, we take the partnership from a B2C originally, like let's look at how fantastic we look from a logo perspective on the car or on the jersey. And we evolved into we want to use the hospitality opportunity to change the order, or we also want to make sure that we demonstrate how our portfolio works with them as key customers. Because when we can prove that it works in a company like Ferrari or in a company like Real Madrid, how they use our portfolio for better outcomes, then is when we have a good story to tell.
It makes a lot of sense as well, because you're showing how the product is working in practice at a large organization, but then they also have the experience and the affinity with the brand as well.
That is correct. Correct. So it's a different usage on how you use a partnership, but that's what it works when you go B2B.
Yeah. And if you look at it like from say a broader reach and kind of like more upper funnel kind of metrics, I remember you mentioning before about like how during a game that things can be attributed from a media aspect. Maybe you could just touch on that a little bit, of like, that you have viewership and how you kind of attribute that into a media mix kind of a modeling approach.
So apparently this is a very much standard way of measuring the value of the eyeballs on your brand. There are a few companies that measure that. We do our own independent research. Both Ferrari and Real Madrid also measure that with their own agencies. And, the end results look very, very similar. So clearly there is a very standard way to measure what is the value of those logos in front of the potential customers. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then in B2B then, Luis, like, there's a lot of merge. Like at the end of the day, it's like and even the example that you use there, it's like B2B is probably very similar in some senses, because you are marketing to a human, but you're marketing probably to a committee of humans in B2B. But what do you think, like when you look at B2B now, and you can see that there's that emergence from some B2C aspects coming through, where do you think that there's still massive gains to come of like how B2B is evolving? Like what are the gaps from what you see of where the big challenges and where do they fall short in delivering on those? You mentioned one earlier on about like having a unified KPI, but is there anything else that you see where there's like still a lot of work to do?
I think there is a lot of work to do on evolving B2B to, leveraging the latest technologies, really. And I know some people are doing fantastic on understanding what are the customer propensities, understanding how the accounts are behaving, or who is in there, or what they do, providing content to those accounts that is fully custom, even built on the go. And there are many companies that they use very old-fashioned ways of doing B2B marketing. Well, crazy enough, sometimes sending a good piece of mail with maybe a pre-recording, saying, I'm your sales guy, look at this piece of what I'm sending you. Sometimes this works as well. So I don't want to rule out the old tactics, but I think the biggest opportunity is not just to forget about the old, but bring the latest technology. I think whoever is doing that now is having a competitive advantage for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And when you look at that, like we see a lot of trends in B2B. One of the big things now, especially with AI, is around automation. You touched on it as well, and like AI agents and how that can kind of automate and stuff. One of the other things as well is around this B2B influencers / B2B subject matter experts, thought leadership. How do you see that in B2B? Do you see that having an effect of like how it shapes perceptions with when it comes to RFPs or when it comes to people being on the list? Do you see that being something that's coming in more mainstream now to B2B from both from HP's aspect, but from some of your peers that you talk with as well?
I think that's a slippery area at the moment. Yes, the answer is of course. But I see many companies, even ourselves, using influencers, or for the lack of a better word,
Yeah,
in the wrong way, right?
yeah,
Showing someone on a plane with a laptop, saying, "Look how I travel light with my beautiful laptop," is a waste of time in B2B. And first ones we did something like that was us, and that's absolutely wrong. However, there are people that are very well respected in the B2B arena, people that we all learn from, whether it's in IT or marketing or others. And those, they can be very much influential when they talk about something. And again, I'm not talking just about unboxing, because that's very much B2C. But
yeah.
I'm talking, like I said before, there might be CIOs of large companies that they're doing things in a way that is very influential to others. So if you are able to first of all make your customer happy, and second, work with your customer on content that is going to be relevant to others, I think that's the best influencer that you could have.
Yeah, I think the alignment and the credibility is key, really, isn't it? In B2B, like people initially launched it like a B2C play, but it's fine for getting reach and stuff. But then if you look and you see, is there any recall or is there any other impact further down the funnel? It's not really there, I think, when you do that approach. But if you look at it very much on a way of who it is you're trying to approach, and then who actually has credibility in that niche audience, it can work much better.
I agree. And there are a few names that they do have this credibility, and there are a few that they are even living from it, even if they don't have the credibility. Credit to them, I wouldn't use them. And there is like the temptation to go B2C, which I
Yeah,
think doesn't make a ton of sense, in my view,
yeah,
or from the numbers that I see, at least.
yeah. The other thing then in B2B, or what you see at the moment, like what are when you're looking at like even challenges for the year ahead, and you see like the opportunities. We talked about partnerships there and about that piece of like the expansion in accounts. Where do you see in B2B at the moment, like what are the big challenges that lie ahead over the next, say, 12 to say 24 months from what you see in the market at the moment?
We had. Do you remember the times of the cookie when
Yeah, yeah.
everybody was surfing on something, and they were absolutely, in a very weird way, targeted with banners, and
Yeah,
that created an
remarketing. Yeah,
alienation
yeah,
and a waste that we thought we were better targeting, and at the end we were creeping out the people because of that.
yeah,
This, if we don't do things right, that could be the very same thing. Um, in a few businesses, there are very few individuals that make big purchases, right?
yeah,
And they can be constantly targeted in the wrong ways. So I think that's a risk. To be frank, I could be one of those, because I get a ton of weird sales pitches and requests from agencies, and I'm like, okay, this is incredibly wasteful for me. And yes, they're using the latest tech. They identified me as a marketing buyer there. I'm like, oh my God, if everybody's doing the same with a CIO or 90 decision maker from our side, it's going to be a total disaster. Like at the cookie time, maybe too much tech and being too hyper specific and too creepy about tracking someone's interest. That might not be the best way to do marketing
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you touched on there because there's probably a lot of correlations between the cookie targeting and targeting people that way. And now I think it needs to be the big thing that we see is around this like automation flows and like data enrichment. It probably has a function and it does work well, but like what you say, when it's done wrong, it probably is more damaging to a brand than it is good if you keep getting this message that you don't have any interest and you haven't replied maybe twice and you're still getting that because they still think you're in the nurture phase. Do you think like that there's a risk for like maybe large brands don't do it as much, but some of the incumbents that go that route, that they actually might jeopardize the integrity of their brand?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to give you the classical example. You are talking with your partner about going on vacation, and then everything is silent. And suddenly you get an YouTube ad, Surf, talking about a vacation to the place you were talking. And you are like, who was listening to me? Was it the TV, the phone? And then you are like, I'm certainly not going to that trip with that
Yeah.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Yeah. But anything in terms of like you're on the road a lot. You mentioned you're just back from China. When you look at like finding out what's going on in the industry, you're exposed to a lot. What's useful for you as someone that's in a global role, someone that is constantly open to learning and seeing what's happening in the market, events and like even meeting peers? What do you find is like are really useful engagements that do that well and give you, what would I say, give you information, but give you learnings, make you a better marketer?
Talking to peers is important because 90% of the issues that you got that you think they're your own issues, they are common issues. It doesn't make you better, but it makes you feel better, I guess, thinking that we all share the same issues. But what really matters is when someone in a non-competitive environment defines how they are doing things in a different way that you thought it was possible. That's the major benefit. When yes, we all have the same issues. It's nice to know because you don't feel like you're alone. Great, but the real value comes from someone who is doing things maybe not radically different, but slightly different, but different enough that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
That person is willing to share. That's the way we do it. And I'm going to take credit, for example, on the way we measure the hospitality of Real Madrid and Ferrari. In the way I said, we are very clear that we will only take credit for changes of the order versus incremental size of the order, right? We don't measure multi-touch. We measure true changes within a short period of time. So when I explain this, we had this new Ferrari car launch with all the different sponsors of Ferrari. And I had a dinner with a few of them, and then I mentioned this openly. And I think I helped them to bring a story home where they could explain the value of the sponsorship in a different way than just saying, hey, we have this activity, we invite our customers, and everybody lives happy. So, I gave this example. I also get a ton of those examples that I take as a benefit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense. It's very tangible as well of what you're saying. You have a meeting, you see of expansion, you can measure that very effectively. Like it's not something that's like a maybe. It's relatively black or white, I guess, based on the people that you invite with the potential of the account and so on. It's a good point you mentioned because I just wonder from you on the end then as like working with partners and so on, have you found like any unique ways of like they approach hospitality or they approach events like that that's actually useful to you that you then maybe take in turn into HP, whether it's those sponsorship ideas that you mentioned of how you can make them more effective or even, I don't know, events you do internally or any other engagements?
I'll give you an example. We typically invite people that already buy from us to those activities. But I learned a lot from a company that sponsors Ferrari on how they invite accounts that they are not buying today. And they also find a way to avoid the conflict of interest in this case or some of the compliance issues that we have when we try to bring customers to an activity that has a cost.
Yeah.
So they gave me, allow me to share this only with myself in the meantime, but because
Yeah.
I think it's very disruptive.
Yeah.
But just being able to bring, non-customers and make this encounter compliance to them, I thought this was like a fantastic opportunity for us.
Just before we finish up then, Lewis, what are you excited about in B2B at the moment? Anything that events, anything that you're seeing, even campaigns, anything that's happening that it's a couple of months?
You are gonna like this one because you were with me on this journey. Let me be selfish and say the fact that I'm driving and moving a huge company like HP that was conceived as a B2C company, where we have amazing marketeers that they are B2C minded, into a B2C engine that, is becoming better and better, and in many areas, doing excellent work. And I think in no time it's going to be at the very top, is what really is exciting to me, more than anything else at the moment, right? The journey from let's try to do fantastic advertising campaigns that they may win a creative award at Cannes, to how do I drive actual business into a company that is going towards the commercial side. It's not what you ask, but I'll give you this answer because I feel very proud about this. And
Yeah.
by the way, it's a lot of work, I tell you.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. But I think the transformation, though, like even if I look at it with the sponsorship with Real Madrid, anytime I see somebody with a Real Madrid jersey and just even the recall of like the logo on it, obviously there's a lot more things that go on behind that. But what I mean is, though, that the brand and where it is now, in both areas when it's B2B, but also in B2C as well, the growth is phenomenal. It must be an exciting position to be in, to be behind that.
It is, but trust me, when you have a lot of people, still at the beginning, whose dream was to make a major B2C advertising campaign, big media, and you are saying, no, let's go smaller. We are not talking, look, an account may have 200,000 employees. You only target 10. You don't target the 200,000. And that's the biggest difference from where we were, where people thought we had to target every single user of our technology, to we just need to target the buyer. It's such a massive change that is worth to live it once in a life, but no more, right? I can tell you as well.
Yeah. Do you find then that like when you look at that, making that transition during that period of like, if you go very precise versus going very broad, there's probably a window of a learning phase, no? And bringing everyone on that journey during that learning phase, is that a challenge?
You will be surprised because I hear from most of my peers that the hardest part is to align sales.
Yeah.
In our case, it's the opposite. Sales is actively asking for our support and partnership. We get more credit than we deserve, to be frank. So, yeah.
Yeah. Lewis, it was a pleasure having you on the show. I really enjoyed this. Thanks a lot for joining us. If anyone wants to find out about you, the content you share, what's happening with HP, where is the best place to find you and to find more about HP?
I mean, LinkedIn is a place where we have people talking. I talk about marketing from time to time. I should do more, to be frank, Marcus. You told me always, but our leaders are talking about how this company is evolving from what it was into a place where we want to provide technology to the IT departments, right? And that's the new language, the new narrative, and the products that are going to come and they are coming are trying to fulfill that new mission of the company.
You recently updated the mission and vision statement. It's now future of work and fulfillment, right? Yeah.
Correct. I leave
Yeah.
this for another interview with you.
Very good. Yeah, we'll definitely have to come back and do a part 2. Lewis, thanks again for joining us. It was great talking with you.
My pleasure. Un abrazo, Marcus.
Thanks. Un abrazo.
Ciao.